welcome to UWO Agricultural Magazine. As you can see, things have cooled down a bit since our last visit, but that doesn't mean our program is any less enticing. On this edition, we're dealing with a very special topic, one that hits home with many people in Wisconsin, the small family farm in the 90s. That's why this particular location is so significant. I grew up here in this 180-acre farm in Dodge County. It's a tradition that's been in mind the Krueger family for more than 130 years. And like so many farms of its type, it's a tradition that's slowly coming to an end. The 1980s, which is what some experts call the worst agricultural depression since the 30s, has eliminated many farms of this type. On this edition, we'll be talking with experts on the economic realities of farming. And we'll also take an up-close and personal look at the small family farm. Then we'll go back to the university and talk with some entrepreneurs of a different type, and we'll see a program on some Japanese students who spent some time at UWO Oshkosh this summer. All that with a few surprises along the way, so join me. In less than 50 years, the number of farms in Wisconsin has declined by more than one-half. In 1950, while there were 174,000 farms, in 1987 that number declined to 80,000. Bernard Krueger has been farming this farm since he was 9 years old. It has been a way of life. Now experts are saying hard work and sweat no longer run a dairy farm like this. They say it takes management.
Now you've been farming for over 50 years now. How has farming changed from its beginnings?
Well, mechanically, it has changed an awful lot. It's made it easier. We worked more and had less entertainment in those years, or those people did, and maybe they didn't consider it hard. But if we had to go back to the good old days, we would find it more difficult in those years than it is today.
Now, this article in the Milwaukee Journal in 1946 featured the Krueger farm, but your certificate there shows that the farm went back a lot further than that, didn't it?
Well, it's dated 1848, and this particular deed, I think it is a deed, was signed by then-President James R. Polk, and it outlines the actual lay of the land, which consisted of 180 acres at that time. We're quite proud to be able to hold this particular document here for all those years.
Now, have you found it difficult in recent years to keep a small family farm like this afloat?
Well, we put in just as many hours. There probably are less people working. We survived because we had good family help. Husbands, wives, and children all helped make it survive. If we had to pay for hired help, you couldn't survive. It's volunteer help, actually, you might say. You work more hours in a day, in a week, or in a year, and that's what helps you survive.
Did you realize that the farm wasn't profitable enough to send on for another generation?
There is an end to everything, and we just had to discontinue it. Nobody in the family appeared to be wanting to continue the farm, not because they didn't want to, because they thought they couldn't. Years ago, every farm in a 3-mile radius was milking dairy cows. Today, if we go in a 3-mile radius, or at least along our highway, there are only 2 farms in a 4-mile stretch that are milking cows today.
And the reasoning is?
Well, they just were too small to survive.
So do you think that farming, in a sense, has become big business, too big of a business for the small farmer to exist?
It's very difficult to continue because the investments are tremendous. Farming, whether you buy new equipment or used equipment, taxes have risen. I can remember when taxes were $900 on this farm, and today they're $4,200. So you have to make up that difference in income to even pay the taxes. Insurance, of course, has also increased, but tax is perhaps the greatest item, and maintenance, of course, is great too. It's becoming big business, a different type of business. It's just a different way of life. You go into a factory, they don't do the same things in a factory with a hammer and a wrench that they did 40 years ago either.
Thank you very much for joining us, Dad.
Thank you.
Obviously, farming has become big business, and the farmer will be the first to tell you that perhaps starting out is the hardest part. But some entrepreneurs in Oshkosh are getting some help from the university to get a head start in a very competitive market. Whether you're an inventor, a craftsman, or a manufacturer in the area, the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh could lend you a hand. Through courses such as small business counseling offered through the College of Business, up-and-coming entrepreneurs can benefit from the expertise of freshly trained college students. Course instructor Dr. Alan Hartman says the small business which markets its product through working with students discovers its marketing needs and goals very inexpensively.
The students not only rely on me for information, but they also go and talk to, their marketing professor, or they'll go talk to their MIS professor, or they'll go talk to their personnel or human resource professor. So they really get the expertise of the whole College of Business through the students. And you kind of think you can put a price tag on that kind of thing.
The course, taught at the university since 1975, is offered only to 18 to 20 senior business students who are divided into teams. The class then operates as a consulting firm which markets products for area small businesses.
The student and the small business owner-operator really work together on the project. The small business owner-operator tells them pretty much what needs to be done and outlines the general parameters. So then the students within that framework will then analyze the person's needs within the context of the whole organizational structure and then make some recommendations.
Hartman says the class often works with manufacturers, retailers, and inventors such as Jim Meyer. A team of 3 students worked with Meyer, an Oshkosh businessman, to market the hinge he invented. Meyer says the video the students produced would cost up to $5,000 from a professional production house.
The tape was our major project that we wanted to come up with. More than anything else, we needed a sales item so we didn't have to travel. We don't have any money, we're too small. And this was giving us the opportunity to do it.
Meyer says he will begin distributing the video of the hinge to national furniture manufacturers in March. He says working long hours closely with the students has paid off in the professionalism of the product.
I think as a team we work well together, the business community and the university, to put this project together.
Meyer says he's working on other inventions and will definitely market them through this course. This edition of UWO Oshkosh Magazine is coming to you from the Krueger family farm. We're focusing on the family farm in America, which used to be the economic backbone of this country. A majority of the nation's land is still devoted to agriculture, which isn't true in all nations. Visitors from a small nation like Japan are often astounded at the wide open spaces, a luxury they haven't experienced. Japanese students who spent several weeks at UWO Oshkosh this summer say that learning about Wisconsin was perhaps one of the most exciting parts of their stay.
I don't know.
American business, American culture, American lifestyles. Those were just a few of the highlights for Japanese students who visited UWO Oshkosh this summer. 11 students were a part of the university's Varsity Oshkosh Intensive Course in English program. Coordinator of Voice, Fumiko Ernst, says Japanese students learn the English language at age 13, but there isn't a textbook that can replace the actual taste of culture.
When they go out, they can learn how many things are set up, and especially going to a restaurant and they might make mistakes. One girl went to Subway and she told me she was asked many questions about how the sub sandwich should be made. She didn't understand any questions, so she said yes, yes, yes. And at the end, the whole big sandwich came out. So she was real shocked and laughed and everything. But by doing that, by making many mistakes, people may learn a lot.
As a foreigner speaking a foreign language, you're afraid to talk to people. You're afraid to make mistakes. You're afraid people will laugh at you. Well, I want them to lose a little bit of that and to feel like they can talk to people and they don't have to be embarrassed and they don't have to be perfect.
Telek brings newspaper articles and magazine ads into class for her students to discuss, but she says experiences outside the classroom awe the visitors much more.
Of course, everybody's awed by size. People are awed by differences in sex roles. Most people commented on American husbands helping around the house, helping with the children, helping with housework. They also commented on the amount of free time that American men have as opposed to, the typical Japanese father.
Japanese father couldn't play with their children because of his job, and I was very surprised. They want to talk many things with their children.
Naoko, who teaches English in a junior high in Japan, says her students have many preconceived notions about America. Ern says dispelling American stereotypes in Japan is one of the goals of the program.
In Japan, as I said, they will get much information about the United States through media, and when they do that, usually things are sensationalized. For example, they might talk about guns, drugs, and people being killed and things like that. And some people, especially their parents, are afraid of sending their kids to the United States, thinking that this place is very dangerous. And I want them to come here, especially Oshkosh is pretty safe. And learn that people are very nice and they do everything to accommodate them.
Why did you decide to enroll in the voice program?
Of course, to study English and to communicate with many people and to make many friends in this country, yes, especially a girlfriend here.
They can come here and they can see a part of America and a lifestyle and a culture that they can't see most places Japanese would go. Most Japanese would go to Hawaii or to California. Of course, look at Oshkosh compared to Hawaii and California. It's a different world.
In Wisconsin, it's very beautiful. I like this very beautiful state, yes.
Wisconsin, America's dairyland, is taking on a new image in the 1990s, one of corporate farms, high technology, and profit management. This may be a trend all too new for the family farmer, who throughout the years has been more of a provider than a competitor. One expert, however, contends that if small farms adopt new practices, they're not out of the game just yet.
Is there hope for the small family farm to be successful 20 years from now?
It will be, Lisa, I guess, given the now that the family takes a look at their operation as a business, and I'll say adopts some good management and proven technology that will keep them profitable. We have a number of families in Winnebago County that have what I would say a small farm, single-family operation. They're very successful and very profitable. They're using, I'll say, what I would call recommended management practices for a farming operation today.
He says a farm with a minimum of 100 acres and 30 animals can still maintain an adequate standard of living today. However, UW Oshkosh farm economist Milton Mitchell says even for these farmers, to not expand means to go bankrupt.
I would say in the last 50 years, the family farmer has been perfectly aware of the fact that you either grow or get out. The technology has been there, and in perfect competition, technology does not a matter of free choice. You either adopt or pretty soon you fall by the wayside and eventually must get out.
The 1990s also mean government spending cuts and less price supports for farmers. That translates to extra costs for the consumer.
I insist that our cheap food is largely a product of the family farm. The fact that a family farm can raise food so cheaply means that our cost of living is as low as it is. I don't know if you're aware of the statistics, but about 11.8% of the consumer dollar, take-home dollar, is spent on food today. And that's the lowest it's ever been. And there's just no comparable statistic in any other part of the world.
So will we be seeing the disappearance of the small family farm?
I don't think there's any doubt about it, if current patterns persist. I mean, the farms are disappearing, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually you'll get into a situation where you have sufficient concentration that, well, someone like Borden's will start milking cows, and Oscar Mayer will start raising meat animals to be sure of a generous supply for their operations. And I think that eventually is going to come, and I think that we will all be very sorry when it happens.
If farmers could look ahead, if they could see a somewhat stable economy, I think they'd be satisfied. I guess the swings, the wide swings in milk prices, or the peaks and valleys, is going to be a problem for the farmers to really sit down and be able to make some long-term commitments or projections as far as replacing machinery or equipment, livestock, making improvements in their facilities, which are paid over a long period of time. They would like to have a fairly stable type of economy to make some of their projections.
Is it a difficult decision for a farmer to decide whether or not he's profitable enough to stay in the business?
It really is. There's so many things that are, I guess, tied in with the farm operation. It's more than just a business, like you mentioned. It is a place where a family, and maybe where a father and where a grandfather worked and owned the land was in the family for 100 years or more, and it is a difficult decision to see if you're going to be able to stay on that farm, or if you're are going to be forced to give up that farm and to seek other kind of employment.
Some of us have seen the advertisement, "Contented cows give more milk." But how do you charm a cow? Some farmers think music is the key, and what better milking music can you get than the good old barn show with a few polkas? Right, Jan?
Thanks a lot, Paul. Coming up on 5 o'clock at WXRO in Beaver Dam, and it's time for the Tuesday Night Barn Show.
A polka is a polka is a polka. While Uncle Bill McCullum has been hosting the barn show for 17 years, he says 1 hour of the lively tunes in one day is just about enough.
People everywhere, if they really admit it, like polkas once in a while. I hear stations in Milwaukee play a polka once in a while. WTMJ, the giant in Milwaukee, they play a polka every Friday morning. People, they don't want a steady diet of it, but I think if people really admit it, they like polkas.
Oh, we have our Tuesday night request to get to. Yes, the Barn Show. Still, after all these years, we do get mail. Well, our usual Tuesday night sponsors to talk about, including that wild guy down there in Watertown, Glenn Roberts at Glenn's Market. You guys haven't shopped there yet? Well, shame on you. You are missing a slice of the good life, let me tell you.
The way I do the Barn Show commercials is one of the reasons it's been so successful. Not patting myself on the back, but people really do like the way the commercials are done in that show. It's not, like I said before, the straight-laced commercial. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with the commercials.
Uncle Bill admits to having quite a group of listeners in the area, even if a good portion of them are four-legged.
When I envision someone listening to the Barn Show, I imagine a farmer walking into his barn, flipping the switch, and the radio automatically going on, and the cows getting ready to be milked, and automatically put in a good mood when they hear a good old polka on the Barn Show. I'll bet a month doesn't go by without some farmer telling me that their cows definitely give more milk or better milk when the Barn Show comes on.
Boys and girls want to sing along with Uncle Bill. Feel free at home. Crank up them woofers and tweeters, and let's do it. in Kikoski, and I loved her in Burnett. I loved her in Juneau, oh, that you can surely bet.
I put my own words to that song and incorporated I loved her in Beaver Dam, I loved her in Kikoski, I loved her in Fond du Lac, and when the music's put together with the words, people live in Oakfield or Fond du Lac or Oshkosh or Beaver Dam, they hear that and they get a big kick out of it.
I do hope you boys and girls are singing along. Uncle Bill would like to think that you certainly were singing along. Don't be bashful, guys. I hate that. When I have to sit here all by myself and sing, I need your help.
Dodge County is a small county. I know a lot of people. I know virtually, I think, everybody in the county. So, and everybody knows me. And the barn show is like one big happy family. I used to think it was only farmers that listened to it, but I don't feel that way anymore.
While Uncle Bill communicates with his listeners on a one-to-one basis every day, in our university profile, we'll talk with UW Oshkosh professor who communicates with the past. Dr. Diane Treacy, who travels to Israel each summer, brings back a taste of the ancient Middle East. If dirt were dollars, Diane Treacy would be a millionaire. Each summer she digs through the hot, blustery desert of Cyprus, Israel, sometimes for only a few coins a week. Ancient coins, that is.
It's always a thrill to pick up an artifact that hasn't seen daylight for 1,500 to 2,000 years. We do a lot of that. But I suppose if I were to select something that I thought was especially thrilling, there would be several articles. One was a coin that I found last summer with the inscription of the Roman Emperor Julian, who had tried to return the empire to the worship of the sun god after Christianity had been recognized as a legal religion. I suppose I enjoyed that because I had studied him in college and in graduate school, and it was fun to touch something actually from his period.
Her findings range from oil lamps to pieces of pottery and glass more than 2,000 years old, but sometimes her discoveries are much more exciting.
Working in underground chambers last summer on the site was a real thrill. It was a real Indiana Jones type experience, slithering down between the stones on our backs and feet first. And being in underground structures that we really aren't sure what the primary use was, and trying to figure out from the evidence how these chambers were originally used.
She says while excavating may sound easy, it can become a long day after starting at 3 a.m.
Our day concludes then around 12:30. By that time we would have put in already an 8-hour day of physical labor. We return to our camp, which is in Nazareth, and have our main meal of the day, which is then followed by a couple of hours of repose or letter writing, doing laundry, whatever. Then there are camp chores in the late afternoon, which consists of pottery washing, registering of artifacts, doing bookwork to write the daily reports and prepare for the following day. Late in the afternoon, the senior staff looks at the pottery that's been found that day to give us an idea of what historical period we're working in. And this is a great time for all the volunteers and staff to get together and review where we are in the historical slice.
She says her group's license to excavate in Cyprus extends to the year 2000, and she'll be digging long after that.
For me, my avocation and my vocation are one. I enjoy very much my teaching work. I enjoy very much the research that I do in the summers with the archaeological work. I see them as companion pieces. I can't see them separated from one another. I think in part this is sort of a bug one gets, and you don't really once you've been bitten, you're sort of hooked and committed.
This concludes another edition of UWO Oshkosh Magazine. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me, Lisa Krueger, in care of University Relations, UWO Oshkosh, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, 54901. And as we close the chapter on our program, we close the chapter here on the Krueger farm, we'd like to thank the Krueger family for all their cooperation, and thank you for joining us. Say bye, Rusty.